Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to What Do You Say? My name's Andrew Termini. With me, as always, is my brother and your host, Frank Termini. If you like what we're doing out here, please go out there, like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And remember to turn on those notifications so you can be updated every time we upload some new content. All right, Frank.
Buddy, I am fired up. So
we had an L. Let's talk about that. You guys had an L.
Bro.
Yeah.
Listen.
You got to give some feedback, you know. I know you guys had a hard-fought season.
This is what I'll say. Platte County's really good.
They are really good.
There's nothing else I could say other than Platte County is really, really good. Rocco Marriott is a very good quarterback. He's good. Is Platte County, I think they beat us by 38 points. Are they 38 points better than us? No, they're not. You cannot have bad games in playoffs.
No.
You can't. And I don't think we played as good. I think anyone would agree we didn't play our best game, not even close to being close.
Right.
You know, gave up 3 really big plays, you know. And
how would Platte County stack up against Rockhurst?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think Platte County beats Rockhurst.
No,
I don't. I think, look, I hate saying this.
Gotta be transparent. Let's talk about it.
I hate saying this because this is the loser mentality.
Okay, then let's unpack this for a second.
This is a loser mentality. It's not the referee's fault that we give up 3 big plays and 21 points of, blown coverages and it's not their fault. But I will say that the referees 100% prevented us from responding.
So you had some...
I think there were 2 no-call pass interferences that we should have gotten in our favor on 3rd down that we didn't get, that stopped drives in their tracks. I think they could have called holding on every single play.
Really?
I mean, blatant holding in front of the line judge over and over and over and over and over.
Blatant holding.
Oh, here, we'll tell you, if you watched film, they could have called it on every single play. And I don't expect to get every single call.
No, but you at some point in time, the referee's got to see that and say.
And I'm also not saying that if we got the calls that we were supposed to get, we would have won the game. But I am saying that we ain't fucking getting beat by 38 points.
I mean, here's the way I look at it. When you're talking about great players on the field, the best of the players that are in that game, the referees should be watching those players to make sure they're playing a clean game. They should be watching every single player to make sure that
I don't know that Platte County got 1 holding call on them.
But, I mean, come on.
And we kick a 70-yard punt and he calls holding on the fucking center.
On the
70-yard punt from the end zone, from the back of our end zone, 70 yards, they call holding on the center.
Feels like an inside job.
So
I'm wondering if shit like that happens in high school. Like the referees have their...
Platte County's 20 minutes from us.
Right.
I mean, it's not like we were in Maryville.
No.
But I felt like, I was as frustrated in that game as I was going home from Maryville in that district championship game that we lost to them 2 years ago. I mean, it was so fucking bad.
You guys had the talent. You didn't get the calls.
And you're not going to get every call. I get that. Here, we had a wide receiver on 3rd and 9 that never drops the ball. Never drops the ball. The ball went right through his hands. So that never happens. And so you can't do shit like that, that type of shit, but.
I'm sure Bear didn't let him hear about it.
No, Bear let him hear about it.
Of course he did.
Yeah, Bear let him hear about it. But Bear's also, he's going to do things the right way at all times in all circumstances.
I get it.
And like I said, is it the referee's fault that they scored 42 points? No. Is it the referee's fault that we only scored however many we scored? I think you can make a case for it. I do. I think you can make a case for it. I'm going to make a case for it.
Well, yeah, and you should, but we'll have to get into what next year looks like on another podcast as that shapes up. But
here, next year looks good. We started 3 sophomores and a freshman on the offensive line. We got a sophomore nose guard, a freshman outside linebacker, a sophomore cornerback. I mean, we're going to be fine.
Your quarterback's a senior, isn't he?
Our quarterback's a junior.
So he's going to be a senior next year.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big year.
Yeah. So
big year.
And his backup is a stud.
I'm already hearing things about his backup.
Yeah. His backup's a stud.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got Shawn Monday today. How about that?
Monday on nobody knows what day this come out, but it's more than likely if you're listening to it, it's probably Friday.
It's coming out on Fridays.
But we could
and it's spelled M-U-N.
No, just like the day of the week.
It's spelled just like the day of the week.
The day of the week, yeah.
Shawn Monday. Because Andrew's like, Monday? I'm like, you know what? I think that might be his last name.
And I started to think, I was like, God, that's a badass last name, isn't it?
Not that many of them in the phone book, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. But and then there's always the people out there that just, do you have to throw out the cheesy fucking joke every single time?
I'm sure they do.
Like, when I was a kid, I got a lot of it. As an adult, not that many people do it.
Really?
I mean, I had other things for them to critique.
Yeah.
Going on, being, late 40s with dreadlocks. I mean, I'm kind of living somebody's dream somewhere, right?
Yeah, right. For sure.
Dude, those dreadlocks were awesome.
They served their purpose for when I had them.
How long did you have them? How long were you growing up?
Years. Like I said, before I cut them the very first time just to trim them up, they were down to my butt, and then I cut them to the middle of my back.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks ago, I just got a wild hair and walked into this barber shop, and the guy looked at me like I was on crack, and he goes, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." So he started cutting them off. I mean, shaving everything off. So
wow.
And I kept a couple of them, and I mess with my kids every now and then, smack them with them and stuff like that.
You said they weighed
6 pounds. They put them all in a pile. We put them on a scale.
6 pounds.
6 pounds of hair. I should have bigger traps on paper carrying those things around, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So,
Frank, how much are you carrying around up there? Hey, bro, I'm going thin too.
No, I always brag about your hair.
No,
it's head of hair.
It's going thin too. I got the ball. I
use that Rogaine.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't do dick.
I don't, you know what?
It may prevent me from losing more hair.
I started to think about using it, and I was like, you know what? The harm that this potentially could cause versus whether I actually care if I actually lose my hair.
I honestly don't.
It's kind of like whatever.
I'm not self-conscious about having to shave it. I'm really not at all. I don't really give a fuck.
No.
So this is interesting how this happens where we end up going through themes.
Yeah.
Right. Like when we did the sex trafficking, we were inundated with various people saying, "Hey, I have some insight into a facet of this," right? So we ended up having an attorney on, someone who was trafficked, someone who started an organization to combat. We had Department of Homeland Security, and we ended up having the sequence.
And we had a woman who was trafficked.
Right. I said that.
No, you didn't.
Sure did.
All right.
So
we'll review the tapes.
Check tape. So now we had last week we have Nita and her story. And now, which was basically mental illness slash addiction, right? And then now again we have Shawn. And I thought this would be interesting because whenever we discuss this type of thing, mental illness from Nita's perspective, it was
apparent.
It was the third person.
Yeah.
Right. And so now we are actually getting to talk to someone in the first person that struggles with it. So I'm excited to chat with you about this. But first, let's talk about you're a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you've done that for how long?
Oh God, I've been in Genesis forever. I started personal training probably in 2013.
Okay.
And I started working there when it was Gold's, and I got the job only because my buddy was the club manager, and I wanted a free membership for me and my wife at that time.
Okay.
I'll probably finish my career the exact same way, just for a free membership, working part time or something. I started part time and liked it. And then Genesis took over, I believe it was April of 2016.
Okay.
And I remember it because I went on vacation and I left on a Wednesday and it was a gold. I came back on the following Wednesday and there was a totally brand new sign up.
Oh shit.
And I was like, I don't even know if I have a job. And I walked in there with my red gold shirt. And next thing you know, I'm working there full time as a trainer. Then I've been a manager on the club level and the fitness level. And then I've also done some stuff with the facilities for the company. So every job except for kids club, I've probably done in some shape.
Sure.
Form. So
Yeah.
I've been there for a long time. So
good deal. Good deal. Well, so I know you've had some turbulence in your life, big time.
Yeah.
To say the least. But let's start off with the diagnosis and when you started to notice, because you are diagnosed bipolar.
It's actually bipolar 1. There's actually a difference between the two.
So let's talk about it. So talk to me about so there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So
bipolar 1 is actually, from what my psychiatrist and my therapist has said, is the most lethal of the two, because the peaks and troughs that you go through, like the waves of emotions, are much more severe. Sometimes last a really long time, especially if you're not on medication.
so you're talking about mania
and depression.
And depression is the bipolar part.
Yeah. So like I would go days without sleeping and I'd be completely fine and just jacked and loving it and still working out and doing whatever. And then I'd go like 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes up to 8 weeks where I didn't want to do jack. I just wanted to lay in bed or lay on the couch. I'd still make it to work, but
is this prior to you even knowing you had it?
I always struggled with some sort of issues, like dating back to my childhood. Number one, it runs in my family. So on my biological father's side, along with, I have an aunt that's got paranoid schizophrenia. So that scares me right out the bat that,
I said this when we had Nita on. That might be the most frightening diagnosis
yes
ever.
Yes. And
so when was your aunt diagnosed?
Oh, probably back in the 70s. I mean,
okay, so she was young.
Yeah, she was.
Because you're typically diagnosed around your 20s.
They say that typically between the ages of 18 and 25 is the most common age differential for diagnoses for mental illness, for any mental illness,
whether it's bipolar or schizophrenia.
And back in the 70s until like the late 90s, mid 90s, it wasn't even called bipolar; it was just called manic depressive.
I mean, right.
And then they actually gave it a clinical diagnosis, and they split off into two. Like, actually, when I got diagnosed, at first, I didn't believe it. I was like, this is bullshit. I'm just fucked up. I just do a lot of stupid stuff, whatever. I'm just whatever. And I started kind of like looking at what I was doing. And you mentioned Nita. Me and Nita actually had quite a few talks about this, about like the sadness and the mania and the not sleeping. And I would kind of lose my temper in instances where you shouldn't lose your temper. Like if I dropped something, I would get real mad.
Yeah, I do that.
I mean, I would take it to the point where, like, an example, I took some time off from work, probably mid 2023. I had a leg injury too, so it was kind of perfect timing.
Did you have a hip replacement?
So I tore the quadricep hamstring completely off the bone.
I remember. Okay, that's right.
My hip. So it was like a 3.
But you need a hip replacement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they put a bolt in there.
So, got it.
Or like a string, but they call it a stringer or something like that. But I was also like struggling with like losing my shit, like at the drop of a hat. And like I would throw chairs. Like I even threw a dumbbell in the gym at somebody. It got that bad at one point. And I was like threatening the club manager at that time. So they had me take some time off. And I started kind of seeing somebody about that. And they said, you're not getting any better. Why don't we have you do these tests? So they gave me some like questionnaires, and I took those questionnaires and I looked at them. I was like, this is stupid. So I just filled it out, honestly. And then they put me on with a psychiatrist. And he's like, yeah, you've probably been battling this for probably all your adult life, and you just didn't realize it.
So how old were you when you started to notice this?
So I started having like the mood swings probably in my mid-20s.
Really?
But I just...
So all through grade school and high school, you were fine?
Didn't have a single issue. I mean, I would get angry at like basic shit, but I mean, like typical teenage stuff,
Yeah.
But mine goes a little bit step further because they also think that my childhood had something to do with kind of not really onsetting it because it is genetic, but at the same time, it can be triggered is what they call it, by events. And with me, it's my childhood, my upbringing.
So let me get back to something real quick. So bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, and the only difference between the two is the mania and the depression last longer.
The severity of it, yeah.
And so it lasts longer and it's more severe.
It's more severe. And which I didn't quite understand until I started reading on it, but the severity is like literally here to here. I mean,
Okay.
it's
a big difference.
It's a big difference, right? And then what most people do is if they have like bipolar 2, like, and this is just stuff I've read. I don't know. I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but they can tend to get by with doing healthy things. I mean, nutrition,
Change your diet,
change your
exercise,
exercise,
treat it without medicine.
Treat without medicine. Don't be getting raging drunk or taking pills or, self-medicating, I guess.
Right. Sure.
With bipolar 1, your brain doesn't work that way. I picture it, and this is probably the most ridiculous analogy you can think of. To me, bipolar 1 is like a boyfriend or a girlfriend that always gaslights you, breadcrumbs you, lies to you, and abuses you emotionally.
Got it.
And you have no idea it's happening.
Right.
One day to the other because of the highs and lows.
Right.
You tend to have, I don't want to say delusions, but you think differently and you don't want to believe what you're thinking. You don't want to believe what people are telling you. Like I had people tell me, you need to get help. You need to see somebody. Oh, that's bullshit.
Do you feel like your thinking is cyclical? Like you consistently get caught on one thing that's kind of like that?
Yes.
And then you circle the drain kind of cyclically?
It's seriously like it's a never ending loop that
Yeah.
I can't seem to break. And for me, it's through, I internalize a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And I take that internalization and I just grind it into the ground and I just don't let up.
Yeah.
And it's probably not the best way to do stuff. I need to be more open to doing other things instead of like feeling like, here's an example. Like if I do something I know is wrong or I realize is wrong, like say somebody gets hurt in the process, like emotionally, verbally, whatever, I will like hold on to that guilt that I have because I don't want to be that guy. And it just drives me like into the ground. It like destroys me. And I'm actually going through that sort of right now, but I'm kind of coming out of it because the medications are starting to work that they put me on.
Yeah.
Go back to that again. So you're saying in the event that you offend someone?
Yeah. If I feel bad or guilty, I hold on to it and it drives me up the fucking wall to the point where like I will do anything to forget about it. I'll self-medicate. I'll do whatever.
Give me an example, if you don't mind.
I had a relationship that went bad.
Okay.
95% of it was my fault.
Says who?
Says me.
Okay, so hold on.
Let's from analyzing.
Okay, so wait a second. So let's talk about something first. So let's just go. Let's just have a session.
Okay.
All right. So tell me if you don't have to mention the girl's name, and if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to answer the question. We could stop the conversation on. But what went wrong in the relationship?
I was the biggest uber dick piece of shit to this person. I was very, not hateful, but I was very mean and almost dishonest in a way.
Okay.
Because I didn't like to share stuff.
Okay.
Because I was afraid of being judged or afraid of being ridiculed. I'm sure everyone goes through that. But I hold on to it. And I don't want someone to know my past at all. Well, when it finally all came out, then it's like, wow, okay, I was pretty dishonest about that. And I felt bad, like really bad. And so I would hold on to it. And how do I hold on to it? I started drinking like immensely high amounts of alcohol.
Okay.
I started self-medicating with pills.
What were you taking?
I was getting Xanax and some Percocet from buddies.
Got it.
And that's not the way to do it.
Right.
It will send you down a rabbit hole that you will never climb out of. And they got me on medicine for my bipolar 1. And
like lithium.
So I'm on what's called lantamigene, which is like also called Lamictal, and then I'm on another one called Seroquel.
Seroquel, doesn't that make you like knock you out though?
It's such a good sleep though.
Yeah, I took a Seroquel one time. I was waxed for 2 days.
So I take it before bed, and I wake up a little bit groggy, but I'm fine. And but now that they're working, I see things a lot more clearly. Like that loop is starting to go away. Like if I start getting like to the point where I'm getting like, okay, this is all my fault. I suck. I'm a fucking piece of shit. I can now, like, I have some coping mechanisms, I guess you can call it, that, and a couple weeks ago, I didn't have these. I wish I would have a couple weeks ago. But I've been, talking to people and seeing therapists and all that. And I have some ideas now on when I get to that mental thinking, how to get out of it. So I don't send myself back down that rabbit hole.
So in other words, you kind of you get some viral thinking, and then like you dwell on the viral thinking.
Oh God, yeah.
Negatively, probably
Negative self-talk.
or
Yes.
positively, probably. In some ways.
Positive.
It's
It seems like I focus more on the negative, but
yeah,
I do focus on the positive. I should probably really focus on the positive, because I mean, I got some good stuff going for me, but when I get in that negative, just that gutter thinking, I think is
yeah,
what you can call it. I just can't get out of it. It's like, I only make it, a good analogy for that is like, I'm underwater and I know how to swim. I know how to tread. I know how to get out. I just can't.
yeah.
I'm literally looking up at the surface and suffocating. That's how I get. And the only way I know how to cope with that until recently was to get just fucking loaded.
Yeah.
Now, were you doing this while you were taking antidepressants?
At first, yes.
Yeah, fuck,
Now
that's not good.
Now I'm not. So, and luckily I got out of that downplay. But now that I'm thinking more clearly, I'm seeing things for more what they are instead of the negative impact. I'm saying, okay, well, maybe this is a learning lesson. And
We're our own worst critics for sure.
Most definitely.
And in every facet, we're our own worst critics. And I could see how somebody who has a cyclical viral thinking can get captured on all their negatives.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
I could see that 100%. And then compounding with alcohol and pills, those will also start taking the place of the guilt that you had for wronging someone.
Yes.
So now you have two kind of facets, and it's one of those things.
Self-loathe about over drinking and taking pills, and self-loathe about what you did to whomever.
I want to drink and take the pills, so it's like literally like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
And Father Mark, when we did that podcast, he said you deal with the consequences of your addiction by your addiction.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Father Mark was an alcoholic.
Yeah. It's a good podcast. You should listen to it. But,
yeah.
His like, here, I would drink, I would wreck everyone, and I would deal with those consequences by drinking. And so that, it is cyclical, like you're saying. So you're diagnosed in your mid-20s.
Roughly, yes. 2 months ago, I went back to a psychiatrist because I want to make sure.
Yeah.
Like, there's something fucked up here. Everyone's right. There's something not right with me. And kind of tangent off that for a second. When I was 16, I had to get away, like between 16 and 18, I had to get away from my family. Luckily, I had, other family and friends that could help me. When I was in my 20s, I started dwelling on that.
Okay, so would you have to get away from your family for? Because you said something about your childhood. Is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened?
My childhood I don't know. There's only one way I focus on. The only word I think about when I think of my childhood is torture. Like, I have scars on my body that were given to me by my father. Like, I have a burn the size of a softball on my mid back from where he touched me with a pan.
Oh man.
He burned you with a pan?
Burned me with a pan because I did not do my homework that day. I would go to school bruised, beat the shit. I would tell people, and no one, because.
So here's my frustration with psychology. Okay. How does psychology know that what's going on with Shawn Monday isn't trauma from his past that needs to be unpacked and dealt with, and not bipolar disorder? And that's why when Nina passed, I would not even talk to anyone about putting my kids on anything. Right? Because I'm like, that is some serious weight, some serious trauma that they're going to need to unpack. And they're going to need to unpack it. Like, you can't unpack that shit all at once.
Right.
Right? Because like Frankie is just now, starting to realize what happened and deal with it. And as they get older and realize what they actually really lost, that can, grief comes in waves.
Sure.
Right. And so you have to unpack that as you can handle to unpack it. How does psychology know that Shawn Monday is bipolar versus fucking just dealing with some trauma?
And Shawn, I do want to give you a chance to respond to that question. Because I just kind of want to add to it. I also kind of wonder why, if you have a traumatic series of events and it shapes your way of thinking in a negative way,
Which that would.
Absolutely,
the one person you're like, here, me and you could never comprehend that.
No,
like,
we could not.
Dad was a protector.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So we can't comprehend what that's like. I would never know.
How do we? I agree with that. Like, how do we know that those impactful tragedies or traumas, not tragedies, traumas that you've dealt with influence and kind of reprogrammed your mind to feel that way?
I've actually thought about that fairly recently.
Which is why you went back to the psychiatrist to figure out if you were truly bipolar.
So if you think about it, like soldiers, police officers, EMTs, people who go through
post-traumatic stress.
I'm a firefighter.
Yeah, and
so I
what's this, like they go through a serious trauma. I don't know like fully how it works, but obviously what I went through could be considered post-traumatic stress. I mean, getting the shit beat out of you for years by
fucking A. By the person that you're supposed to be able to trust with anything.
It just wasn't one. It was both of them. I mean, they both.
So it's bilateral.
And then my siblings never got a fucking thing done to them. They were, I was like always Monday family, fucking Sean's out here.
So what I'll say about traumatic incidents from a firefighter's perspective, I feel like trauma has a way of imprinting on your soul, imprints on you. And it because of the trauma that you go through, it rewires things and how you process information, good and bad. Sometimes I get into a place to where everything that's a really, might be traumatic to my wife, for me, it's like, well, it's not that bad. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but here, everyone's got their own weight.
Right.
Like
absolutely.
I remember
everybody has their own strength for that weight.
I had a friend of mine, I'm not going to mention anyone's name, but he came up to me and he was just distraught because his grandmother died. And I'm like, all right, dude.
She was 98 years old.
As someone who also is a liaison for a hospice company, and you're dealing with families who have an 84-year-old mom and they're just so distraught and they can't deal with the fact that their 84-year-old mom has terminal cancer. And it's like, you're going to have to come to grips with this.
Right.
I actually will stay away from those conversations because I know that I'm kind of have this like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
She's 84. Right. How long do you want him to live?
But I mean, back to what I was saying is that it imprints on you and rewires how you think. Yeah. And so if this happened at 16, who's to say that it was a delayed process?
And here's the thing about that. Like when I was 16, 18 years old, that's when I started really like realizing this shit is not okay.
Yeah.
My friends don't have to go through this. My cousins don't have to go through this.
So it takes you till you're 16 to realize this.
Literally, I was getting wailed on from as early as I can remember.
So how did no one else in the family not realize? Like, are your siblings older than you?
No, I'm older. So
so are you the oldest?
Yeah, I'm the first black sheep or whatever.
So you took the brunt of the.
And now, don't get me wrong, I was a pretty pretty interesting child. Like I would always like talk back and, just look at whatever other kids do.
So does Gemma.
Yeah. I mean, like that's, I mean, even my own kids do it too, but I would never in God and ever heaven and earth think of ever putting my hands on one of them to drive a point home that they need to listen.
Right.
I can do a thing. And luckily the cycle didn't repeat from one generation to the other.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Right.
And, that's one thing I'm very, very grateful for. I don't really know about the whole higher power God thing, but I will say if that is a God thing, I'm glad that
So you're a skeptic.
I am a little bit. Yeah. But
not a little bit. You are. That's fine. I'm not judging.
I'm also learning like, there's a guy at the gym named Tony Cardello. And
I know him very well.
He's been, he's been talking to me a little bit about it. I flat out just one night, I sent him a text message. Hey, I got a question. Tony's a great guy. He was actually on the podcast. He's an awesome guy. Person to talk with. I sent, and the funny thing is I was drunk off my ass and Saturday night, I'm like thinking some bad shit. I'm like, you know what? I know that he's very religious. I'm just going to ask a question. I want to see what he says. So I texted him and said, hey, how do you know he's listening? He's like, who? I'm like, God. We started talking about it and we still do, like, periodically. And he makes a lot of great points.
Well, here, I'll tell you right now, the question isn't, is he listening? The question is, are you?
That's what that's what I'm getting to. He said the exact same thing.
Okay, well, brilliant minds think alike.
He's like, are you taking in what he's telling you? I'm like, honestly, I don't know if I am or not. I don't think I am. I don't know how to open my heart up to anybody, let alone somebody I can't see or hear or feel, right? And that's, I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel that way. And I need to get better at that. So I've been very receptive to everything he's been telling me. And he gave me some stuff to read. I've been reading it daily.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. And I'm not going to say I'm going to go like off the rails like some people do, but I'm starting to become more open-minded to
Some of the most strongest Christians were former atheists.
Yes.
C.S. Lewis is one who I think's brilliant. Jordan Peterson. Yeah. Jordan Peterson's fucking wicked smart. I love listening to that guy. But he was an atheist and he's now a theist for sure. And, everyone grapples, right? Because like if you only pay attention to what you can see, touch, and feel, you're going to grapple with it.
Yes.
But there's definitely, I will tell you this, and I'm sure Tony has said this to you, injecting Jesus into your situation will help you more than any medication.
You did say that.
and I think it's fair to go in and go to a place that you can listen, even if it's like, we need to get him some Stephen Furtick stuff.
Stephen Furtick's good,
and some Tony Evans stuff too. We'll get you some links to that stuff. But going into it with an open mind, saying, "Okay, I'm just going to listen to what they have to say," and that's kind of where I was.
I pray that way sometimes. Like sometimes I'm like, you know what, God, I don't even know what to say right now, and I'm just going to sit here silently and just listen. But what you have to do. So this is how I like to be with the Holy Spirit. You ever have something in your ear? Maybe it's a faucet, and you can hear it dripping, drip, 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 and then no matter how loud everything gets around you, only thing you can hear is that freaking faucet.
Yes,
that is the way you want to be with the Holy Spirit. You want to be that in tune to Him. That no matter how loud anything gets around you, you're still in tune to what the Holy Spirit's trying to say to you. And that's what I try to be like, because you're not going to always have someone spiritually discerned and someone to, right from wrong, but that's who you really want to be in tune with. And I think if you can get in tune with that, it is going to improve your situation greatly. I'm not saying you're not going to be dependent on medication. And at the end of the day, who cares if you are?
Exactly. And see, I've always struggled with that because
you don't want to be on meds.
Hell no. Nobody does.
I don't disagree with you. And at the end of the day, there is that common denominator with psych patients that they don't want to take their meds.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I would fight that like a motherfucker too.
Yeah.
You know, but the problem is though, you know, with wanting to figure out where you're at and not taking your medication, you really have to, you know, because you're going to get to a place to where you're going to feel like, I don't need it. Why am I taking this?
So me and my therapist already have a plan for that.
Yeah.
Because especially with lintamagene, which is one of the ones I'm on, generally within a year or two of taking it, you start to get really, really adaptable to it. And either they got to increase the dosage or move you to something else.
See, that's what I don't like about psych meds. It aggravates me. And and that's why it's like there has to be a better way, and there has to be something psychiatry is missing. Now, I'm not a doctor either.
What I find interesting is this diagnosis, like cancers, leukemia, sickle cell anemia, multiple sclerosis. They have patented tests physically they can do for you.
They don't have that for mental illness.
It's a fucking questionnaire and a guy you
So
talk to.
so let's talk about this for a second though. So if we know that the medication that you're on slowly your body adapts to it.
Yeah.
And then you're in a process of kind of leaning into your spiritual well-being. Is it safe to say that if we know that that's going to your body's eventually going to slowly adapt to it, and you're working on your spirit, is it possible that you get to a place to where your body has adapted to it and you've replaced it with something that
I think it's a very valid question. So here's my question. Let's talk about this. So what's the pharmacokinetics of the medicine you're taking?
One controls mania and the other one controls depression.
Right. What I'm asking you is biochemically, what are they doing? Do you know?
They control the secretion of not only serotonin, but other denominators in the brain that keep the mania and the depression even keeled.
So
basically it's
serotonin and probably dopamine.
dopamine as well. So basically it's making me...
Here, let's do this. Tell me the names of your medications.
So lintamagene, it's also called Lamictal.
Lamictal.
Yeah.
Let's look it up. Lamictal. Here we go.
And
Lamictal, bipolar disorder. Okay. I'm trying to find out. Like if they give
I
me
can find it here. Like you guys,
drug class is phenyltriazine. So let me go to this. It's a class of molecules that contain a phenyl group and a triazine group. Okay, great. Okay. One example. Okay, give me more info here. Synthetic, it acts as an anticonvulsant, mood stabilizer. Great. Mechanism of action. Here we go. Works by inhibiting sodium and calcium channels in neurons, which stabilizes neuronal membrane. It enhances the action of the gamma aminobutyric acid, an inhibitory neurotransmitter. This is not giving me enough.
I'll give it to you. You guys keep. It's called Lamictal.
Yeah. So basically, it's explained to me as one keeps me from going down, the other one keeps me from going up.
So it stabilizes the neural membrane, but the inhibitory neurotransmitter, what's it inhibiting?
So the only thing I can think of, and I've been trying to research this, but there's so much like different shit out there that this stuff is classified as. Like, again, it can stop people from having convulsions and seizures too. That has nothing to do with bipolar disorder.
Right. It's an anticonvulsant. Yeah. It alleviates epilepsy.
Yeah. So like somebody who's not bipolar can still take it to keep from having shakes and seizures. It seems like all the drugs pharmaceutically for mental illness were all created originally as something else and brought into a different fold.
What I'm trying to see is like so look like an SSRI. It just it tells you exactly what it does. It prevents the reuptake of serotonin.
Yes.
But my question is, there has to be a way to measure the serotonin to determine whether or not you even need that.
See, I don't even know how that would even be possible without like, it's, chemicals in the brain. How would they analyze that? I mean,
well, all that stuff starts in the gut.
True. You could.
So here's the explanation I got. Calming overactive nerves. It blocks sodium channels to prevent neurons from firing too much. This helps control seizures and stabilize mood. Reducing extraordinary chemicals. It lowers the release of glutamine, a chemical that can overstimulate the brain and cause seizures or mood swings. It balances brain activity by reducing overactivity in the brain to help prevent seizures.
See, this is all very vague to me.
Funny how they talk about glutamine. We sell glutamine in our gym. I take glutamine daily with my pre-workout. I've been putting something in my body that doesn't make sense to me. So I've been putting something in my body that could possibly harm me, but yet we sell it on the market.
Yeah.
Like it's going out of style.
Do you still take the glutamine?
I think I'm going to stop now.
Yeah.
Now that I've heard that.
Well, so it's telling you that you like that would make you think you need to stop taking it.
Yeah.
But like,
do you take pre-workouts?
Yeah. Just very minimal amounts. I don't take a big amount. Like I can get away with half a scoop, or normal people have to take a full scoop.
And so my question, so you can't measure these things.
The only way to measure, I think, and I think we'll get to a place one day, is to have the brain, the electrodes of the brain, imaging to where you could see what's firing and what's over.
There has to be a means to measure. You can measure the chemicals all throughout the body.
I agree. There has to be a way to see what's firing in the brain in real time. And I know they have those laser. I don't know the scientific.
Look at all what's the number one side effect of all psych meds?
Depression,
suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm like, why in the fuck are you going to give someone who has bipolar, depression, anxiety, whatever the hell it may be, and give them a medicine that could potentially cause that?
Now, I will say this, Shawn.
Okay.
We're speaking about this. This does in no way, shape, or form do we have a medical degree. You should don't be influenced by any of the shit that we say.
No, I'm talking out loud here. I'm thinking out loud.
But it all makes sense because it all, at least that way, like say, for example, I go see my doctor in 6 weeks if something's not working. I at least can say, hey, what about this A, B, and C versus 1, 2, and 3? Then at least maybe like.
What does your psychologist say?
He is the one that brought the PTSD.
I
from
think
my childhood.
Yeah.
And but what does he say about your meds? Or does he not want to talk about them?
He doesn't get into it a lot because he thinks that they will help stabilize me enough so that way I can start dealing with all the past shit, right? Because that's one thing I will say. I've never dealt with a fucking thing that's happened in my life.
And you need to. You got to unpack it.
I do understand that I need to.
But my question is like, okay, to me, I look at psychologists as the physical therapist of the brain, right? So the physical therapist, the PTs, we generally do not like taking medicines long term.
Mm-hmm.
We don't mind taking medicines so that you can do therapy, but our goal is let's get you off the medicines.
Right.
Okay, as a PT.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, like, is the psychologist like, hey, let's get on these meds so that you can do the therapy with the psychologist, but let's make the ultimate goal to eventually get off the meds, right? I mean, is that what they're...
But I've never heard my psychologist mention that. And like I said, I'm still...
Well, here's another thing that you have to remember. One of the things that they preached in PT school was do not advise anyone on any medication.
Practice, yeah.
Right? That was like 100% what they would pound down your throat. Now, as I started practicing,
right,
I felt more comfortable saying, hey, go to your doctor with this question, and this question.
Which is good to have, because the more informed you are, especially if you're putting shit in your body that could drive you to the point of taking your own life.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you by chance get off them, you don't know what kind of reverse effect you're going to have getting off them, right? I have no idea if I stop taking these tomorrow. Just theoretically speaking, if I stop taking these tomorrow, who's to say that by Monday I haven't blown my brains out because it sent me into a crazy whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and the way I'm looking at it is like you're of sound mind and body right now. So by no means are you not smart enough to realize, okay, maybe I need to start taking these meds again. Right.
Well, that Frank, actually, that is a problem with people who have dealt with bipolar. Their regular problem is keeping them on the medication.
And my doctor did stress that coming off of them just because I feel like I don't need them is the worst thing you can do. Because picture having, before I got on the medication, like I'd have days where like I couldn't form a rational fucking thought without either getting angry, sad, mad, wanting to do whatever. It would just send me to a complete flip out.
But
right?
you still, even though you've taken this medicine, you have not unpacked anything.
I have not unpacked it. And that scares the shit out of me, wondering what's going to happen when I start unpacking this stuff. The meds will probably help with that as far as stabilization, maybe. I really don't know.
Well, here, at the end of the day, like something that you need to definitely do, and I even have to make myself do this, is I have to force myself to unpack my shit too, because you get scared, just like you were talking about, because you're like, what is it going to, is the process of unpacking this going to put me in a rut?
Like I can give you an example before I got on the medication. And this is we're in the end of November. So I don't know if you noticed, but there was 2 weeks I was out of the gym. It was because I had a fucking nervous breakdown.
Right.
And that's when I got on the shit. And I started I realized, and I think thankfully I had a moment of clarity. I realized something was wrong, but people are telling me, you need to see somebody, you need to see somebody, you need to see somebody. Cause I was getting crazy. And one night.
How long you been on it? Just so real quick.
Not even 8 weeks.
Okay.
So not even.
You were diagnosed with bipolar at 20 in your 20s?
Yep.
And you hadn't taken any medicine?
Nope. I thought I could do it on my own because I'm an idiot.
So this is 15 years.
Yeah. So I tried medicine once and it was what was it called? It was called Effexor. And it broke me out in hives. So I quit taking it.
Yeah.
So I thought I could do it on my own.
In the 15 years, did you ever do any intense psychology?
Nope. I bottled everything up. I focused on.
Dude, I just am having a hard time diagnosing you with bipolar. I'm having a hard time. I'm in no position to diagnose anyone with anything. I'm having a hard time being convinced that you're bipolar.
See, how about that too? But then, here's an example. I talked to my ex-wife about this, and we've been divorced since 2016. So we were married for quite a long time, and I would ask her, and I was like, "Hey," and she offered to keep my sons. Why I was going through this for that couple of weeks.
How many kids you have?
6 total.
6.
My gosh.
You're like me.
I'm like a procreator from hell, man.
Man.
So
good for you.
So how old are the kids?
Oldest is going to be 28 and my youngest is 9.
Wow.
So you're kind of like, so Ross Joseph's 27, the twins are 11.
Yeah.
And then so 28 and then boy or girl?
Girl, 25.
Okay. And what does she do?
She works for the sheriff's department. She does she's not cop, but she works in their dispatch area and stuff like that.
Okay. And then what's the next one?
My son, Charlie.
Okay.
He works for a nectar juice place or whatever.
Okay. How old's he?
25.
Okay. And then the next one?
Haley, who's 22.
And what does she do?
I have no idea. I haven't seen her in a year. She's kind of distanced herself from the family. So
oh no.
Yeah. And it's nothing bad. She's very Peace Corps-y type.
She's one of those just the wind takes her where she goes.
Yeah, the wind beneath my wings takes me exactly where I want to go. Then my daughter Ashley is 22.
So you have two 22-year-olds.
23 and 22.
23, 22.
Yeah. And,
okay. And so she does what?
She works at Talk of the Town as a director. She does fairly well for herself. And then I have a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old.
And the 15-year-old is in high school, obviously.
Yeah. He's just got into the swim team and he's loving it. And he's an awesome kid.
Okay.
But he still drives me at the wall because he's also 15. Okay?
Yeah.
I should probably need medication based on that alone.
Right.
Now that he's got girls and stuff walking around and all that shit.
So you got the 6 kids. And then and those are from 2 women, I'm assuming. Okay. And then, so how many with the first wife?
3 and 3.
3 and 3. All right. So
I will say this, and this is from a person who's been to therapy for PTSD and marriage counseling. I go to therapy for anything in life at this point. My wife's actually and getting ready to finish up her last year of school to be a therapist. So, once you start unpacking your stuff and the fact that you're on medications right now to help maybe ease that stuff coming up, I just look at it as, think about it. You're in the gym all the time. You put 3 plates on each side and you start repping out, bench press. You look like a pretty damn well built guy. I'm sure you can crush some weight. As you start unpacking stuff, it's hard, but the load gets lighter, man.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we started doing. Like, we're focusing on like one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Because he says that a lot of people, when they start unpacking their past, they try to do it all because they want it done as quick as possible.
It's the process.
And he's like, it's not like going out and buying a set of shoes or a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
You have to feel some shit.
Yeah, you do.
That scares the absolute hell out of me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because I feel, and I've had one session recently, just one, and we've had more and more, but this one, we talked about one thing. And for 2 days after that session, I felt like I could have slept all day, every day, because it
exhausted
physically and emotionally drained me to the point.
Here, do you know the reason why I stopped going to therapy? Because I would have to set an entire day aside, because when I get done, I'm non-functioning.
Yeah, it's
for that whole day.
Yeah.
And so it's like, who the fuck has time to do that?
Yeah.
Right? Which isn't the right way to be.
Honestly, every therapy session, I got into a practice of every therapy session after, and I know you're kind of trying to discover where you sit at spiritually, but I just sat there and prayed for the protection from what I just unpacked. And if you think about it, like, we're nothing more than all spiritual beings. Everything is light and energy. Mm-hmm. This is not woo-woo shit. This is science proven, So we're spiritual beings stuck in a meat suit. And so as we work out our physical being in the gym, we need to be working out our spiritual being, finding that connection. And I think once you start, once I started unpacking stuff, and then after I got out of therapy, prayed for the protection. Now, whether you're praying, roll the dice. What do you got to lose?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Pray to pray to God and ask for him to reveal himself, and he will reveal himself. That slowly happens. And it's just like therapy as you kind of unpack your stuff in therapy, like, God reveals himself, but he reveals himself in dosages to you, because he knows that if he were to come and reveal himself in his glory, we wouldn't be able to maintain or comprehend the gravity of it. So when I started going back to church, when this was probably 2010, because I had definitely lost my way. And when I started going back, that people would refer to me as like a baby Christian, and I started to take offense to that. And then I was like, well, no, that's just where I'm at in my spiritual journey. I'm an infant. I'm a baby. I'm learning how to navigate the things that God's telling me, learning the cues and how to listen to the Holy Spirit's voice, like you mentioned. And it opens another way in your brain that it rewires your neural pathways. And I'm a true believer that the things that we cannot do on our own, when we surrender those things to God and ask, hey, rewire my neural pathways. I'm praying for a hedge of protection after this therapy session, because it was intense and it was hard, and acknowledge the fact that it was hard and pray for that protection. And then just, wait. And a lot of times he'll give us the answer in the speed that we need to have it. It might be one of those things where it's like you say that prayer for a hedge of protection, and he knows that you need to be affirmed quickly, and he'll do something in the ether in your world that crosses your path that somehow it impacts you to where like, okay, that's ironic. And I don't really believe in irony when it comes to prayer. I feel like that's God's nudging you in a direction, saying, hey, here you go. This is what you asked for. So you look for those ironic moments after you pray. And I feel like that's when God starts revealing himself slowly to you. And man, it's life-changing. It really is. It's life-changing. I had a cyclical viral thinking. I struggled with addiction. I struggled with depression. And I got to a place of surrender to where I'm like, you know what, man, I can't, nobody else around me can fix me. And I don't know how to fix me. I am literally at my wit's end. What do I have to lose by surrendering my problems over? And surrender, what do I have to lose?
Well,
and you come to a place where it's like, I got nothing to lose.
There's something to say for that, for sure. And I don't know. I don't fucking trust psychiatrists.
Well, I mean,
I don't.
The best psychiatrist I've ever had is the Word. And I don't care. I'm a Christian, and those are the fundamental beliefs I believe in. But if you go through all the books, you're not finding anyone that teaches you to hate, harm, and to try to kill, steal, kill, and destroy, and the lies. And once you start understanding what the devil's trying to do, who he comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and he's the father of lies, you can kind of start to identify and put a name to maybe some of the things that I was thinking.
Well, the real question is for Shawn, if you're for this situation is like, from all that trauma that he went through as a kid, what was the lie that was injected?
Right. What was the lie that was injected?
What was the lie that was injected into that situation, right? Which is going to be hard for a skeptic, to even ask that question, right? Because for before you could even ask that question, number one, you have to believe in the devil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I think even if you start asking yourself, even if you're separating from God and the devil, and you're just saying, what lie did I insert? And then you start understanding where that lie even came from.
Yeah.
So I think that,
but you can 100% guarantee
there's a lie.
There was a lie that was injected into that situation that he has lived out as truth.
Either I'm not good enough. I deserve the pain that's coming to me. It can be a myriad of things.
I've thought about that.
So let's hear it. We're basically just having a session here with two fucking idiots that don't know anything.
Scoot the mic up.
They're not good enough. I heard that daily. Or I heard that I was a piece of shit daily from my mother. I mean, the two people in this world who are supposed to protect you above anybody else. Like, here's an example. My brother played baseball. I wrestled. I did karate. I did all kinds of cool shit. I ended up, fighting in MMA after a certain.
I remember. Yeah, he fought Carlos.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then I had a really good kickboxing career. I mean, it wasn't like, Mike Tyson, and by any means, but I made a fairly good amount of money, and I did it, and I was great. My parents never once came to any of my events from the time I was a little kid till I was an adult. They went to every one of my brother's fucking games.
All right, so that's definitely a lie that's been inserted.
And
sounds like
no, there's definitely been something.
And I almost wonder if maybe the lie that was inserted is how I treat people now, because it probably comes from that. I took all this shit in, right?
Right.
And now
But I don't think you treat people bad.
There's times where I'm not my best. Let's just put it
Dude.
that way. I mean, but I think
Welcome to the club.
I think everybody does that. But the problem is, like, I feel so bad about it that I take it past a point that a normal person would.
And there's no doubt that when you start to how you treat yourself is likely how you'll treat others. And so, like the old adage of saying, treat others the way
You want to be treated.
it's really treat others the way they want to be treated. I feel like that is a more profound, because everybody wants to be treated.
Because some people don't treat themselves very good.
And that's true.
If you're,
And some people are super.
alcohol and drugs. Yeah, you're not treating yourself.
Well, and let's
or
say
if you're just not showing yourself any grace and you're extremely hard on yourself for
Right.
every little thing you do.
And then if you project that onto your wife and onto your kids, well, that's no good.
I used to do that to Caitlin,
Because I'm hard on myself.
I was so hard on myself that I would project how I was feeling about me and the standard that I was trying to hold myself to my wife, and not showing her any grace. So it really started to affect my relationship to until I understood, like, dude, you're not showing yourself any grace. How are you going to show anybody else any grace? It's like the drill sergeant in the military. He's not showing anybody any grace. If you fuck up, he's going to let you know.
That's also done for your protection.
Understood. But we'll use that as an extreme, though, of thinking. If he treated himself the way he treated his cadets, then you'd have a real hard time. You'd have a real difficult time, because as hard as he is on them, as hard as he is on himself. And so showing yourself some grace, it starts with how you treat yourself. In order for you to treat somebody, to express love, I think you have to show yourself some love.
Here's my question for the psychologist. Have you ever, has the psychologist ever seen a patient be freed from having to take meds?
That'd be a damn good question.
That's one question. Then the next question is, what I would want to know, does the psychologist, of all the patients is it he or she?
It's a he.
Of all the patients that he's seen, does he think 100% if you did your therapy, unpacked all your shit, did everything you're supposed to do over a course of time, does he think you would be freed from having to take these meds?
That'd be a good question to ask too.
Because then so now the question is, because if you are truly bipolar, the answer to that question is, yeah, you're still going to have to take the meds whether you unpack the shit or not.
True.
Right? But if you're not, you just got weight.
And for them to tag you with one or two, I don't know how they quantify.
See, that's what
because he's probably told them that
multiple times.
Well, he probably told them.
I asked her like what differentiates me bipolar 1 versus somebody that's bipolar 2, and they just said it's the severity of the disease. What the fuck does that even mean?
What's a severity?
Well, if his mania is lasting a long time and his depression is lasting a long time versus a bipolar 1 who says, I go a couple days and I don't sleep, and I go a couple days where I feel like shit. That's probably bipolar 2.
Right. So, but at the end of the day, it's so we're talking about the time that you're spending inside of your
psychosis.
Yeah. For psychosis or your swings, how long your swings last. But to tell somebody that they're bipolar 1, how does that, so now you go in there and you tell them you're already dealing with some things, and they tell you you're bipolar 1. And now all of a sudden you're like, well, fuck, I got the most extreme case. You know what I'm saying?
From somebody who likes to internalize all the negative.
Right.
That is a fucking wind out of my sail.
Well, and that's a power of suggest. That's why I don't like them fucking psychiatrists. I'm telling you, I don't like them psychiatrists.
I think that you receive that with a grain of salt when it comes to the 1 and 2 thing, unless they have some defining things in your your brain, your biochemistry that they can identify that quantifies you as 1 or 2. I think that diagnosis is unfair.
Here's what else I think is really interesting. So I started reading all this because I fucking freaked out. Like, oh my God, I'm going to be on medication the rest of my life. Typical negative thinking, right? You realize the only thing that's different between bipolar 1 and schizophrenia is just perimeter symptoms.
What do you mean?
A schizophrenic has the exact same symptoms as a bipolar person, except they have it more severe. Then they have delusions,
Well, yeah, because
hallucinations,
yeah.
and then they hear shit, right?
visual and auditory hallucinations.
Yes.
But let me ask you
only
this.
difference.
That's a big fucking difference,
It's
though.
a big difference.
But let me ask you this question. If you stay up long enough, now I've been in this
I've done
state.
that. I've stayed up 5 days in a row.
I've been
You're
in
gonna
this.
fucking hear shit.
You're gonna hear shit. I've stayed up on drugs when I was, a younger man, and it got to the point to where shadows were doing things and I was hearing things. And I think that if you're bipolar to the point to where you're having an issue sleeping and it goes on for 5 or 6 days, there's no question about it. Your mind is going to fatigue and you're going to interpret things wrong. You're going to interpret audible and you're going to see things. It's a guarantee.
Yeah, because your body can't go that long without
Your brain
rest.
your brain gets
It overloads,
exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I think a sleeping aid is key.
Here, I
That's
bet
what's really
you,
good about
here,
the
you want to do a fucking experiment? I'll tell you, do an experiment. I bet you'll never send a patient into a psychiatrist that they won't fucking give medicine to.
Now they want to prescribe you.
I guarantee you can't send 100 patients into a psychiatrist and there ain't one of them that they don't give medicine to.
No, they want to prescribe, but I do think that in conjunction
Fucking do that experiment.
with intense therapy of unpacking what you have going on, the medication is aiding. Because I kind of, when you said to me, it scares me to unpack stuff, and I started to think in my head, I was like, why would he be scared to unpack stuff? But I get it now, because you also followed that up with, I don't know how I will emotionally respond to it. And it might be an extreme, and I don't want to have that extreme response. I could understand the fear associated with unpacking
For
things.
me-
Which is why I agree with medication and for the therapy. Just like I agree with utilizing medication. Like here, for a total knee replacement, they come into my office, they're fucking bombed. They're on benzodiazepines, they're on opioids, they're on all kinds of shit so they could tolerate what I'm getting ready to do to them for an hour.
Right.
Okay. And they may need to do that for 6 to 8
I did that
weeks.
for up to a year with my leg.
Yeah.
I was on,
Yeah.
but I just took Percocet, and that's all I needed.
Right.
So, and that was plenty good for me.
No, I've had patients
And
where like
just to be able to get up and sometimes crutch around, it would hurt.
Yeah.
So I'd take 1 or 2. And it was even like high milligrams or anything like that. But I mean, I can see therapy, medicated therapy for the greater good to being to live a stable life without it.
right.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if they've done the research to see if something like that is even possible. I mean, I haven't read anything about shit like that.
Well, like I said, it goes back to my point. You take 100 people that walk into a doctor's office, they could, not a doctor, but a psychiatrist's office, they could all talk them into prescribing them something.
Well, hell, even general practitioners can do like Prozac, Effexor,
Yeah.
Celexa, and those are all mood stabilizers.
Yeah.
I mean, and they have side effects.
And really, let's ask this question.
You can get that off hims.com for God's sake.
What
Yeah.
percentage, what is the percentage of time that a physician spends on psychiatry? How much is it in med school? How much that they're able to just prescribe that shit?
I think they're reading the label of what they're supposed to do, know the downside of it, and say, okay,
Let's try it.
let's try it.
Let's try it.
It's almost like scope of practice in a way. They're within that scope of practice.
And the reality of it is, none of them have taken it.
No,
Now,
some of them have been on it. Like I've had some physicians that have taken the shit.
Okay, well,
I say shit, but you know what I mean.
then I think that those physicians have a different expertise, because if you're prescribing a pain medication to somebody who's in pain, now everybody has a different pain tolerance, but you know the general idea of what that medication is going to do to someone. And blood pressure, there's a quantifiable metric that you can look at and say this lowers your blood pressure. But for somebody who's prescribing medication, psych medications, who's never taken those psych medications, for me, it's like you don't even have the experience. You're just telling me what the label says to me. Now, I'm not saying, again, you shouldn't take your medications. I'm thinking, here, I take ADD medications. Without it, I'm pretty much, worthless. I mean, I don't perform at the same level as I do without the medication.
Well, here, but at the end of the day, so here, if we're going to talk about one psychological diagnosis, right? So there's no way of measuring whether or not someone has ADD from a blood work standpoint. They give you the medicine and it works.
No, but I can tell from my habits of focus how it changes. But that's quantifiable for me because I can see in the amount of productivity. If like I have found things that I can measure, like can I sit down and focus on a task at hand without having 14 different tasks going and finishing none of them? That's a quantifiable metric for me to say, okay, I should be taking this. I've been on it so long now. It's like, if I go without it, I notice, but it's not that big of a deal because I'm so used to taking it. So I do think there are some psychological psych meds that are that
here. Listen,
work.
I'm not saying that they don't serve a purpose. What I'm asking, I'm just simply posing a question. I don't want people to listen to this podcast and people who are dependent on psych meds get pissed at me. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I really don't give a fuck. How about that? I mean,
we're here at the end of the day. We want everybody to be well and to be.
I'm just posing a question. That's all my question is. Like, are they overprescribed? Okay. And do they need to be taken in perpetuity?
Yeah.
Those are the two questions that I'm asking, and I would venture to say with the right therapy protocol, 99% of them, maybe not 90, maybe 90% of them don't need to be taken in perpetuity. There are the few select cases that do, but I think everyone needs to be in therapy.
I do too. I don't think there's a person out there that couldn't benefit from talking to somebody and going to somebody and talking about their shit regularly.
Well, and at the end of the day, like, look at trying to get into a therapist. How hard was it to get into yours?
I was on like a 3-week waiting list.
I mean, that's actually not horrible.
No, I mean,
No.
Are you paying cash out of pocket? Because a lot of them don't take insurance.
So my psychiatrist is covered by my insurance, but the psychologist is on a
Cash.
sliding scale. It's cash only.
Yeah, right. I don't blame them. I wouldn't fuck with insurance either.
And they're the ones that I think. So which ones don't prescribe?
Psychologists don't prescribe
They don't
meds.
prescribe.
So, and your psychologist is not covered.
Not covered.
Right.
And I feel
Weird,
Should
right?
be the other way around.
Yeah.
It should be the other way around.
Yeah, weird. And here, at the end of the day, look what they do to physical therapists. Look at how much they've hamstringed my profession.
Right.
I mean, I went from here. I'm not going to say what I was getting paid per visit, but it dropped 33% over the 12 years that I owned core physical therapy. They're progressively lowering it and lowering it and lowering it and lowering it. I mean, so the whole entire goal is to get you on medicine. That's what our healthcare system does. The whole entire goal is to get you on fucking medicine. Now, Shawn, by no means am I telling you don't need it. You very well may. Yeah. I don't fucking know. But with the shit that you're telling me you've dealt with your whole entire life, I don't understand why they immediately jump to bipolar disorder.
So I've asked myself that a couple of times too. And kind of give you like a backstory. The first visit to the psychiatrist, I feel like they had me previously, and I sent to me like a week before, which was amazing because I never thought they actually would work that fast. I filled out a questionnaire online, submits it back through the portal. And based on the questionnaire I took on the portal, it doesn't say anything. It just says, thank you for your whatever. It says, but then you get an email the next day saying follow-up needed. So I'm like, fuck, okay.
Yeah.
And so I go and actually see this person. 5-page questionnaire.
Yeah.
His focus when he was going over the questions with me was the severity of the mood swings. which I can kind of understand, but he had me go back to like when I was married. And I'm like, me and my ex-wife don't talk about this shit. I mean, we've been divorced, you know,
Yeah.
she's remarried, fucking it is what it is. So we were doing a parent exchange, dropping the kids off. I was like, you know what? You got a second? She's like, absolutely. I fucking asked her, being married to me, how fucking horrible was it?
Yeah.
And she's like, it wasn't horrible, but you have issues. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I'm like, did you ever notice this, and this? She says, absolutely. And she correlated that with when she would go visit her parents, is when I was in my mania stage. Because she said it was fucking scary.
Yeah.
Never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
I would go to, like, she said my thing was I go down the basement and just like wreck shit. And then she would come home and they'd be like fifths of vodka, like all over the place. She didn't want to deal with that. And rightfully so. And I feel bad about putting her through that for all the years that we were married. Luckily, it didn't have any detrimental effect. I always kept it. She said, one thing I will give you credit for, with the exception of one time when you were completely out of it, you never did it in front of the kids.
I mean, here's right. I don't look at you and we're having this conversation and believe, and I'm a pretty good judge character, that you have a mean spirit. I don't.
You came up to me and told me that you had mental illness. I'm like, this is the most productive, regimented, disciplined guy that I've ever seen with mental illness. That's why I'm like,
and you know, I almost wonder if me being that OCD regimen was my way of like fighting it. But I have noticed this, and my productivity at work, I'm not servicing as much sessions, but I'm there all the time. It's like my second home, basically. So
that also is not, that's predicated
that's exactly
on shit that you can't control.
But 80% of those drops in my sessions were sessions that I canceled.
Okay.
So I actually went back and I tracked my sessions from September through October, and I had a 30% drop in my session rate. And I was, besides Nita, I was the busiest trainer in the place.
And of the 30% drop, 80% were because of you. So 30.
So, and those were the days that I was leaving early. I was going to get drunk and all kinds of shit. So it correlates in that aspect to me. So maybe, and luckily I caught it, and we're going down this road now.
But that still doesn't equate to mental illness.
Yes and no. I really don't know. Because I mean, dude, even though like there's a lot of research out there, what research are you reading that's good versus research that's bad? And it's still a very untapped, vast plane that hasn't been, like, think about it. If you parents schizophrenia, same questionnaire, they give you the exact same questionnaire. It's just based on what your answers are. That's how they determine it. Do you hear voices? Do you do this? Do you do that? Like, ask me all those questions.
All right. So I guess the next question is, if we're going to talk about the validity of the test, how many people could take the test, have nothing wrong with them, and still test positive?
That's a good question. I wish I knew the answer to that.
Right. I mean, so I wouldn't consider me to have any mental illness or you to have any mental illness, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe some people would make that argument.
Man, the world we live in nowadays, this world is so fucked up in some regards with certain things that I'm surprised not everybody's just a little bit crazy. Just
everybody, and that's why everybody needs a therapist.
Yeah.
Everybody should have somebody to talk to.
100%. But I'm just, God, I don't know. I just don't trust psychology. Excuse me, psychiatry. I do not trust psychiatry.
Few weeks that the medicine has started to work, I do see a difference in my productivity. I see a difference in my way of thinking. I still kind of go into the loop sometimes, but I'm catching it. I wasn't catching it before. I was just fucking.
Yeah, that's key. That's key.
I'm catching it, and I have ways now that I'm coping with it. That I started this little blog thing, which is what my therapist recommended.
Yeah, you're a pretty good writer. I read your stuff.
So, you know,
impressive.
I never thought I was. I never thought
you're a pretty good writer.
Fucking Meathead would be a good poetry person, but I guess I did okay with it.
No, I thought you did well.
And I like that, and that's my outlet. So I love it. And if I have a bad day, I'll throw something together, you know, and if I like it, I'll put it on the blog, if, you know, or I'll do like a short story with it or whatever. And then I'll go back the next day and reread it. So that way I'm not catching myself. Okay, this is what I did wrong. This is where my loop was. Now I have a different, instead of just still going like this, now I have a way to go that way and get out of the loop, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And it seems to be helping.
There's a book out there by, I believe it's Eckhart Tolle. It's The Power of Now.
Oh, it's a great book. We just talked about it. Me and you did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We talked about it on,
I think it was it Nita's?
maybe Nita's or Tony's. but-
No, it was Justin Reed.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about fear, and we talked about fear exists in the future and in the past, doesn't exist in now.
So the premise of The Power of Now is all you have is the moment that you're sitting in right now. You don't have things in the past, and you don't have things in the present. And dwelling on one or the other only put yourself in a place of unease,
True.
because we only have right now. So like when I get in cyclical thinking, and I think for somebody who's if you've said you're like OCD a little bit, OCD thinking is very cyclical thinking. You get caught on one thing and it continues
to come back to it. Yeah.
continues to come back to it. So I think that knowing that but it also is some of the things that drove you to perform as well as you have in athletics. Your cyclical thinking and getting focused on achieving the goal that you want to achieve, whether it's training, whether it's competing, when you competed, that kind of cyclical thinking, you probably got that in your head. And I think most athletes do. They get that in their head of the determination, and it becomes a thing that they kind of cyclically think about. Yeah. So I think that, kind of recognizing your performance and how that kind of thinking benefited you in your life.
Well, and this is also where, for me, because I have cyclical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where being a Christian has helped me, because one of the verses the Bible says is God doesn't give you a spirit of fear. So if my thought is making me afraid or creating depression or anxiety, I know that it's not coming from him, and therefore I know it's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's a way that
Elaborate on that. That's interesting to me.
Well, because look at the acronym of fear: false evidence appearing real.
True.
Okay. So if I have
Hey, Shawn, scoot the mic up to you. You could pull it over to you so you can be comfortable.
Yeah, there you go. You're fine. You can hurt it. So fear is false evidence appearing real. And the Bible says two things. One, Satan's the father of lies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And God's the way, the truth, and the light. So now if I have a thought that is instituting fear into my head, or anxiety or worry or any of that stuff, I can discern lies from truth. I know God, if God doesn't give me fear, then I know any thought coming in isn't coming from him. So why am I paying attention to it?
I've actually never thought of it that way.
Why on earth would I pay attention to that? It's got to go in one ear and out the other. It's just like an arrow through but you have to be conscious about it. And you have to be disciplined about it. Right. And you have to, and it's something you have to do over and over and over and over again every single day. Right. Because I'm someone whose brain races all the time, which is why I went and got my hair cut today, and the guy that cuts my hair, he's like, "You're the busiest dude I've ever seen." And I think I have to be that way. They say the idle mind's the devil's playground. When I have nothing going on, that's when my mind will start to mess with me. You know what I mean? And that's when I start to get these negative thoughts over. And of course I have like you, shit that I still need to unpack. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But if I got a thought that's going in my head that's generating fear, I know it's a lie.
So I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That is like a fucking deer in headlights moment for me. Just hearing you say it just that way, it makes 110% perfect sense.
Yeah.
I've just never put two and two together thinking in that direction.
Well, and the devil knows the shit you've been through, so he also knows where you're weak.
Yeah.
So you follow what I'm saying? So like for me, I'll just be very honest with you, having lost 2 kids, what's going to be my biggest fear? What's my biggest fear going to be?
True. It makes perfect sense.
Right? It's going to be losing another one.
Yeah.
Right? So when I start to have those thoughts, I just know it's the devil trying to torment me. You know what I mean? And just create fear in my life when that's you weren't made to live that way.
True.
And he's even does it with my kids, right? Because they've been through trauma. You know? And so he don't care that they're 10 and 11-year-old little sweet kids. He doesn't care. He's still going to go after them. You know what I mean?
And if you believe that, like, there are 2 real emotions, you know, you have love and you have fear, and that everything else is a
byproduct
of love or fear. Guilt, shame, doubt are all subsidiaries of fear, and everything that you experience, joy, happiness, are are all subsidiaries of love. And so kind of interpreting like what you're feeling, where it's coming from, and whose voice you're listening to. You're listening to either God's voice, you're listening to the devil's voice, or you're not listening to either of them and you're trying to listen to yourself. And kind of discerning the difference between the 3 voices that you're hearing in your head. So if someone wants to say, are you schizophrenic? Do you hear voices? Yeah. I do.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And I don't, thank God, because, I do believe that there are Christians strong enough that do literally have auditory hearing the Holy Spirit.
I think that's accurate. Yeah, for sure.
And I think I do not, because I think that the Holy Spirit knows that I'd freak out.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I do 100%. I do, how do I want to say it? Because I don't hear him, but I feel him.
Right.
And he does.
He knows the way to communicate to you.
Right. He puts thoughts into my head.
Right.
And he gives me answers to questions and in various ways. And it may come from a person, and it may come from a song, and it may come from a Bible verse, and it may come from a pastor. It may come, but that's why you have to be in tune to him.
Well, that's why that's why you have to expose yourself to him. You have to expose yourself to people. Dad always used to say this: you hang with the cripples, you begin to limp. You hang with people who are and expose yourself to people who are spiritually discerned. You start to recognize and have spiritual discernment.
Yeah.
And that's why, wherever 2 or more gathered, there I will be. It just states it right there.
Well, I say, like, when I talk about fear, and like one of the things that I am afraid of, is there a parent out there that doesn't have that fear?
Absolutely.
I totally would.
Yeah. I mean, so there's not a parent out there that doesn't have that fear. Is that fear a little bit more vulnerable in me?
Sure.
Probably so. Or Michelle, or anyone else who's lost a child. Yeah. That's probably a common denominator. Right. So it's not unique to me.
And at the end of the day, you can't reduce. So you've dealt with some trauma, losing 2 kids, that not a whole lot of people could wrap their head around that. I mean, let's be honest with that. But in the same sense, that traumatic and fear, the way it sits with you, somebody else who doesn't have that gravity of fear in their life, it still could be as big. You know what I'm saying?
100%. No, 100% it could be. Yeah, because you see how parents, they have them helicopter parents that never let their kids, that doesn't let them grow. They gotta experience pain and those types of things to let them grow. And I have to consciously let myself do that, to the point where sometimes, I may be too, what's the word I'm looking? I'm not protective enough sometimes, maybe. Right. Because I'm trying so hard to not be overprotective because of what I've been through.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
In this day and age, it's kind of hard not to be overprotected with everything going on in this world today.
Yeah, for sure.
I still I got 4 of my kids are adults and I still freak out, like thinking something could happen to them at any moment.
And they can.
Yeah.
And Frank has said this 1,001 times. You really think you can protect your kids, but
that's a figment of your imagination.
It's,
you can't.
There's no way.
Surrender's the biggest thing, is that you have to surrender it. You have to surrender it over to something.
Or you will literally go absolutely fucking crazy.
Exactly.
You have to surrender the.
And here, let me ask you, are you a control freak?
Not really.
No? Okay.
Like, I always pictured, like, I guess a good way to explain it, like, I always knew that things weren't in my control, so I just kind of out of sight, out of mind. The only thing I control is like my regimen during the day. That's the only thing that I know I have complete, absolute control of.
Your attitude, your effort, and your response to what happens to you.
Exactly. So, but do I have control what's going to happen if I walk out your front door?
No.
Absolutely not. Right? But there's some people that they freak out about that shit and like
you become agoraphobic.
Or an employee does something stupid and you're going to micromanage them and freak them out and just control every aspect of their job. I never ever thought about being that way because no one, it serves no purpose.
Oh, and you won't have any employees.
Yeah. And they'll hate me and, stuff like that. But when I think about the whole control freak aspect, I almost wonder if it's due, like when people go into that kind of realm of thinking, like almost like hovering, if that was something that they experienced as trauma when they were younger and maybe they're just resonating up, And then so I've been thinking about like small stuff like that. Like my father was immensely controlling, but in all of the wrong ways. And my mother was the exact same way. But luckily I didn't develop that habit, I guess is a way of putting it. Never once hit my kids, never once told them they weren't good enough, never you know what? I think I might have overtold them I love them a lot as they're growing up.
Yeah,
because I never heard it.
You can't tell your kids you love them enough.
Yeah, hell, like my dad told me on my 10th birthday I should have been aborted. That's the kind of shit that I heard daily. I would never once in a million years think about saying that to one of my children.
So let me ask you this. Has your relationship been healed with him at all?
They're both dead. He died in 2014.
Oh, that makes it okay.
Give you an example. I didn't go to either funeral. I just fuck it. I didn't. When I was able to get out, I got out and I didn't look back.
So here's a question.
He did try to reach out to me quite a few times, like maybe a year before he died. And he wanted to smooth stuff over. And I talked to my brother and sister about, I'm not talking to him. Fuck that. Fuck this. And they're like, well, he's gotten different. He doesn't drink anymore. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Alcohol is not an excuse for what he did. And every once in a while, maybe for about that long a time, 2 seconds, I wonder maybe what would have happened if I would have entertained that conversation, right?
Well, let me ask you this. Have you forgiven both of them?
Absolutely not.
That's part of the problem.
I'm sure.
So let's talk about this. What is forgiveness to you? What does it mean?
That's a damn good question.
So you don't even know what it means.
I've never even thought about it.
So think about this. Think about this. Unforgiveness is like taking the acts that they did to you and attaching them to you. Okay? And then, so let's say it's a chain. So let's say all the beatings is a chain, they wrap it around you. The burning, it's a chain, they wrap it around you. The mean things they said to you, it's a chain, they wrap it around you. And now they can take you and take you anywhere they want to take you. All forgiveness is taking bolt cutters and breaking the chain. It's by no means saying anything they did was right. It's all it's saying is, I'm not going to be attached to the beatings. I'm not going to be attached to the hateful words. I'm not going to be attached to them burning me. I'm not going to be attached to it anymore. I'm not saying it's right, but it's no longer going to take me where it wants to take me. I'm just not going to be attached to it.
I've actually never thought of it that way.
That's what forgiveness is. Yeah. It's just like taking bolt cutters and breaking the chain. Because a lot of people think, fuck no, I'm not going to forgive them. Because they think forgiving them is saying that what they did was right.
Like giving in.
It's not.
That's what I associate with.
It's not. Forgiveness has nothing to do with that.
You forgive for you.
It has nothing to do with them.
Not for them.
You're forgiving. Forgiveness is a selfish act. It has nothing to do with them.
I've never even thought of it that way.
You're carrying people that
we're basically psychologists.
Yeah.
You could probably, without giving out meds, we can make this work.
People who carry
I'll save $95.
Fuck that psychologist.
People who carry grudges and hold grudges, they're doing nothing more than holding the weight of those bags.
Here, this is something that was brilliant. That I can't remember the name of the author, but Pastor Jonathan was talking about the other day. It's called The Bait of Satan. And the bait of Satan is offense.
Okay.
And here's the key. When you are offended by something, you can no longer hear anything that they're trying to say to you. You following me? Mm-hmm. So if Andrew offends me,
which I've tried to do so many times, I can't get it.
If he offends me, then and tries to apologize, I can't hear what he's saying because I'm offended. That's the bait of Satan.
That makes sense.
Okay, it's the name of the book. You know what? I could tell you because I actually after his sermon, I texted him and asked him. John Bevere. It's called The Bait of Satan. I'm sending it to you right now. But you need to check it out because if you're offended by what they did, then you 100% are not going to be able to move on until you forgive them. And by
I almost wonder though, am I going to have to unpack all the shit first before I forgive them?
I think you got to forgive them and then unpack them. That's going to be the very first. You can't unpack shit while you're offended.
No,
impossible.
You'll continue to carry it.
You 100% have to forgive them, and you may have to remind yourself over and over and over again what forgiveness is. So I'm going to also send you this video that's called Forgive Assholes. And it was by this lady. It's only 2 minutes. So here, hold on. And this is where I got this from. So you can listen. Can you hear it? It's only 2 minutes.
I believe that when someone else does us harm, we're connected to that mistreatment like a chain. Because forgiveness is nothing less than an act of fidelity to an evil combating campaign. So it's not an act of niceness. It's not being a doormat. It really, to me, is more badass than that. Maybe retaliation or holding on to anger about the harm done to me doesn't actually combat evil. Maybe it feeds it. Because in the end, if we're not careful, we can actually absorb the worst of our enemies and on some level, even start to become them. So what if forgiveness, rather than being like a pansy way of saying it's okay, is actually a way of wielding bolt cutters and snapping the chain that links us? Like it is saying, what you did was so not okay that I refuse to be connected to it anymore. Forgiveness is about being a freedom fighter. And free people are dangerous people. Free people aren't controlled by the past. Free people laugh more than others. Free people see beauty where others do not. Free people are not easily offended. Free people are unafraid to speak truth to stupid. Free people are not chained to resentments. That's worth fighting for. There really is a light that shines in the darkness, and that the darkness cannot, will not, shall not overcome it.
I'll send it to you.
Wow, that was amazing.
So that's kind of,
It's like super simple.
that's where I got it from, was from her. She says it way better than I did. I'm going to text it to you. This way you can look at all her shit. She's got some good stuff. She,
But I bet you've probably never asked yourself the question, because when you go through an unexcusable act, especially as a father now who would never do that to his child, you probably ask yourself, that is unforgivable.
nothing's unforgivable.
And I could promise you that your love for your children and what happened to you is probably a lot of the reasons why you've chosen to hold on to it, because you see your kids and you're thinking, how could somebody do that? How could somebody do
Makes
that
sense.
to a child? And regardless if it happened and they made me feel that I deserved it, I didn't deserve it, and I don't deserve to hold on to it any longer.
That's even more powerful right there. You don't deserve to hold on to it less than you deserve to have it happen to you. Because holding on to it is more detrimental, because when he burned you, it burned right then and there.
Yeah.
And then it was done.
Well,
Maybe not, maybe a couple weeks, however long it took to heal. But this has lasted years for you holding on to it.
I think when that happened, I think I was 12.
So there you go.
Yeah.
You know, so that's been, how old are you? 40?
I'm old. Almost 50.
Okay. So that's 38 years. It didn't take you 38 years to heal from the burn, clearly.
Yeah.
So you deserve to let it go, as much as you didn't deserve to have it happen to you.
True.
I mean,
and the process of forgiveness is a process still.
yeah.
It's still a process, but you have to get yourself in the mindset that, just as if you're training your body in the gym.
You need to discover freedom.
Discover freedom would.
You need to do discover freedom at the Rock. You need to definitely go into it and do it. I would still continue to talk intermittently.
Discover freedom is amazing. I've been through it twice, and it really is. You discover the things that the soul ties that have imprinted on you, the trauma that is,
and how to forgive someone who hasn't told you they're sorry.
Yeah.
And now can't.
And now can't.
And so that in my personal opinion, here once again, talk to the professional, and I'm talking about your psychologist, not the fuckers that are going to just give you meds all the time, but talk to them and ask them, can you really be effective in psychology without forgiving them? And I personally don't think you can. I think that's the number one thing you have to do, Shawn, is forgive them and then unpack your stuff. And I'm not saying that you don't need meds. You may need them in perpetuity. And if you do, so what?
Yeah.
Right? And let's say you do. Here, I need blood pressure medicine all the time. Does it make me weak?
No.
You know what I'm saying? So, I don't, even if you do need it, but what bothers me about psych meds is the constant increase the dose, change the meds.
I think, let's not get hung up on the meds right now. Right now, they're working, and I think that let them work and focus on the idea of forgiveness and unpacking the things that you're carrying. Because really, at the end of the day, the meds will be the last thing that you decide to stop.
100%. Yeah,
it'll be the last thing.
And that's going to be a process in itself. Even if
we don't want to put the cart before the horse. I think that getting over to discover freedom is a great place to go. And it's people don't realize this, that they think that when you go to church and you see all the other people in there, that it's a place of people who are well. That is the biggest. The people who are holier than thou, people who are self-righteous. The church is a place for people who are sick, who are spiritually struggling,
Churches are hospitals.
who need God.
Churches are hospitals for your spirit, and nobody who's well goes to the hospital, do they?
True.
And the church is not the building; it's the community. That is the church. That's God. Jesus was that was his bridegroom. That the church. He was married to the church. He was married to the people. That's why he didn't.
Well, here, think about, what if he was to plug in somewhere and find someone who's been through this exact same type of thing?
There's definitely somebody out there that's dealing with exactly what you're dealing with. Because when I went as an addict to the Rock, I found other addicts that were there healing from the same things that I was healing from.
Right.
And when you've had to deal with trauma of the losses that you've dealt with, you found people like Regina, a therapist who was a Christian who had dealt with losing a child.
Right.
There's the church is riddled with people that have the exact same issues that we're dealing with. And God you don't even have to seek that out. I'm 100% confident that when you step into a church, into an environment, and you pray about having God bring the right people in your life to speak into your life that you can relate to, that will happen.
It's already happened. It's already happened to you. I mean, Tony Mike Cardello,
Yeah, Tony, if you haven't listened to Tony Mike's podcast, it is a great podcast.
I think there has been someone beat it, but it's got several views. It's got a lot.
I think,
and that's just from the YouTube standpoint, right? I mean, there's all other mediums that we're dealing with, but
we got to send that over to him.
Yeah, it's all you got to do is get on
I think I follow the YouTube page. I thought I set it up.
Yeah,
you on mine.
Just send it to him so it's easy, because I think that's something that provides a lot of value.
Because I saw like a clip of you with Kendra, so that's when
there you go. That's when you started looking at it. Yeah, right.
I mean, Tony's podcast was therapy for me, and these podcasts are exactly what they are.
This podcast has been therapy for me. So
we've had tears, we've laughed, we've cried. Nobody shit themselves yet.
But I'm sure we can make that happen. Yeah, I mean, they're like Tony Bettalucco is the one that comes out today. Is incredibly lighthearted and funny, and it's good. Next week, Nita's is going to come out. That's got some fucking weight to it.
Yes,
that one's got a lot of weight to. At least for me, it did clearly.
This one
has some weight to it.
It does.
But
you know what? The reality of it is you're brave enough to come up here and speak out on some of the things that you're struggling with. And there's going to be somebody else out there.
Which is interesting, because like if this was a year ago, I wouldn't have said a word to anybody.
That's what the devil wants.
Yeah. So I've never spoken out about
the devil doesn't want you to share it, because what he wants to do? He wants to get you against the ropes all by yourself. Isolate you so nobody can help you.
Makes sense.
That's why look at what all drug addicts do.
Yeah.
And all drug addicts all isolate eventually. Mm-hmm. That's all they want to do is be with the drug.
Or the alcohol.
Well, which is a drug. But I mean, mental illness it's not much different. Most people are like, oh, I don't want to let anyone know that I'm dealing with this.
And I'm 100%.
Oh, hell yeah. In this world, everyone judges like everything. So
nobody.
That's the beauty of being like here. Everyone should be like me and not give a fuck about what anyone thinks.
Everybody lives in a glass house.
Yeah.
Everybody lives in a glass house. Maybe if you're throwing stones, be careful, because everybody has that glass house.
Yeah.
Every single one. We all have shit.
Oh man. I just expose mine. Then you can't say nothing about me. You already know it here.
And you know what though? There's going to be somebody that's going to come up to you that's going to hear this, listen to this podcast, and is going to empathize with you, sympathize with you, and
maybe be able to, solidify something we're saying, deny it,
But you had to step out and be brave.
Yeah.
True.
So,
And that's huge.
yeah. And here, you see me at the gym all the time. You could always talk to me.
You've got my number as well. You got both of our numbers. You could text us
You
anytime.
literally see me every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't look like this for nothing, Sean. Right?
Yeah.
So,
He doesn't see me.
I see you periodically.
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
no, I'm like clockwork.
Yeah.
I'm there every single day.
Unless like you're working late that day, then you're in there a little bit later. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm always there. So I think, but here, I'll tell you what we need to do. Me and you, this is our follow it up with a psychiatrist
Yeah.
and a psychologist.
Yep. Yep.
That'd be good.
We need to get episodes.
So anybody
with
who's listening to this who has a psychologist or a psychiatrist, we would like to have them on
100%.
because not only will you be informing us on the dumb shit that we're saying, but we also have listeners out there that have questions.
Right. And then it's also good to have someone come on. Like here, maybe I'll understand. Like here, me personally, I would tell any psychiatrist, I think the profession overprescribes. I'll say it. I don't care. Maybe they can make me understand why it is they do what they do.
And if it's because if they get kickbacks for putting people on medication, then we have a very
No psychiatrist is going to admit that. Not unless it's a retired one.
True.
okay.
True.
No psychiatrist is going to admit that. But maybe I'm not even going to give them the out. I'm not even going to give them the
No,
out.
we're not
I
giving.
already have it in my head. I'm not even going to give them the out. But I've just made an excuse for the psychiatrist in my head. I'm not going to say it on there. I'll tell you guys when we get done. But I have an idea. But
Well, we want them to come in and
let them say it, because if I say it, then they'll already have
their
the
hat
out
on it.
Yeah, they'll hang their hat on. Sean, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I really appreciate it. And if there's anything we could do to help you in this journey, I know I would definitely, be an ear to help you out for sure.
And we have plenty of resources out there that we've kind of stockpiled that can help guide you in the right direction. And I've texted Jonathan O'Reilly from The Rock. It's a place that Frank and I both attend, and that we're baptized as adults. That Discover Freedom. I'm going to ask them when it's going on, and you don't have to go to the church
To go to the deal.
to go to
Anyone could go.
It's a class that's separate. You go to it, you listen, take it in, and
That'd be awesome.
yeah,
You should check it out.
That would be
it's
awesome.
it's epic.
2 things I would advise you in closing. 1, go to Discover Freedom. 2, go to church.
And that book that you suggested.
The book
Beta
is-
Satan.
Yeah.
Beta Satan. But yeah, I would advise you to plug yourself in. What at this point, and this is a
What do
lot
we
of
got
the
to lose.
nothing.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times where God reveals himself
Yep.
is in the shit, where you get yourself in a situation where, what do I have to lose by studying
By just exposing myself to it,
Yeah.
and seeing what
and
happens.
see what happens? What you have nothing to lose right now.
True.
So thanks again.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate you.